So, Apple Vision Pro is out, it's finally shipping into people's hands, and I truly believe that this is gonna change the world, although it may not be in the ways that you think. Let me explain. Now, based off of the current reviews about Apple Vision Pro, the gist of all of them is kind of like, well, it is very technologically advanced, it's miles, in fact, probably light years ahead of the competition, but at the same time, it's not exactly flawless. And moreover, it does have a couple of issues with the use case. In fact, I made a whole long video about, well, how the Apple Vision Pro actually lacks a use case, and that's one of its biggest problems. Make sure to check that out already if you haven't. So in this video, I kind of want to actually go deeper into how Apple actually nailed this design, and not only just for them and their business, but also for consumers, and how I think going into the future, this is going to pave the way to change the whole world. So let's dive deeper into this. So first of all, a couple of quick disclaimers before we get deeper into the video. Number one, if it wasn't obvious, I don't own the Vision Pro yet. Now, in my defense, I live in Canada. I live more than 2 hours away from the nearest Apple store that actually sells these or even gives demos. So I ain't trying to drive that much right now. But eventually I may or may not buy it when it comes to Canada. So that being said, don't take this video as like a review or an overview of the Vision Pro. Rather, this is just me from, I guess, an outsider perspective or even a potential customer perspective, explaining how Apple actually did nail down the design of Vision Pro. And number two, this video is gonna focus largely on the good stuff in Vision Pro. I did make a whole separate video like last week of the negative stuff that I see, particularly the big problem, which in my opinion is like the lack of a use case. So make sure to check that out if you haven't already once again. But that is my video focusing more on the negatives, and this video is largely gonna focus on the positives. So for starters, we've had VR headsets for a very long time, going back to the 90s, even the 80s, even probably earlier. We've had VR and mixed reality around. So what makes the Apple headset so different that this completely changes the world? Well, even if we rewind just a year back, we had mainly just like the MetaQuest glasses. So that's the MetaQuest 2, the 3, and the MetaQuest Pro. Now along came the Apple Vision Pro, but at 7 times the price. Now for 7 times the price, you're obviously gonna expect it to be better. Like it's gonna have better screens, better sensors, better software, all of that good stuff. And moreover, Apple's a very big company. Like they have a $3 trillion market cap, one of the biggest companies in the world. And they're obviously gonna have a lot more R&D put into a product like this compared to a company which is still big like Meta, but like not as big as Apple, if you know what I mean. So given the price of the headset and also the R&D put into it, you obviously expect Apple's headset to be miles, even light years ahead of like whatever the competition is. But I don't think it's necessarily that, like all the nice technology put into it, that actually makes the Vision Pro a game-changing headset that paves the path towards the future. So you are probably thinking right now, well, what's this guy talking about? Like, what is it that makes the Vision Pro so game-changing? And I truly believe it's Apple's human design that they put into the Vision Pro that makes it like something new, that makes it like pave the path towards the future. Let me explain. Now, if you've seen anybody wear the Vision Pro in person or even online on all of these pictures or videos of people like on the subway or either skateboarding or at a restaurant, you probably think I'm joking right now. Like there's no way this is remotely human in any aspect of its design. And technically you're right. However, this looks human, right? Now, Apple's goal with this headset isn't necessarily to make a great product. I think it's more so to make a great product category. The Vision Pro on its own, for most people, it's still a gradual introduction to the world of mixed reality. Like what Apple did here, they didn't necessarily just take like the existing technology with like the Quest and everything and throw a bunch of money and add better technology into there, like better screens, better sensors, better software, and call it a day. But more so, they took all the old technology that already existed and they made it more human, or they made it feel more natural. And there's definitely a couple of ways they did this, so let me show you a couple of examples. So for our first example, let's take a look at Passthrough. Now, if you don't know what Passthrough is, it's basically being able to use your VR applications, let's say like Google or YouTube or Disney Plus, Netflix, so you get the idea. You're using these VR applications, but in the real life environment around you. Now, other headsets, like for example, the Quest 3 have tried to do this in the past. However, it doesn't necessarily work the greatest. Like obviously they are 7 times less the price and the company has less R&D. So you would expect that. But now that Apple brought Passthrough to their headset, I wouldn't necessarily say it's like real life, especially since I haven't tried it yet. But according to people that have tried it, it is the best so far. And it is the closest to real life that we have gotten so far. However, I don't think Apple's necessarily trying to pave the path towards like these big VR goggles where we have almost like real life screens and we are just wearing them all day long. But more so, they're trying to pave the path towards normalization of having your VR windows in the real life environment. So we could use that on, well, these. And they are definitely normalizing having this real life environment, which is, in my opinion, a more human experience and a more natural experience in general. And a side note, like some of the actual concepts we've seen so far for Passthrough, like for example, using the IKEA app to like put furniture in your room, or watching a F1 race, or even learning an instrument like guitar or like the keyboard, that is something that's pretty cool in my personal opinion, and it wouldn't really be possible without having high-res screens like what Apple added to the Vision Pro. But yeah, I think overall having the real-life environment around you is definitely more natural and a more human experience, and also potentially not as dystopian as some people make VR seem. And hopefully that is something that we do see more in the future. Now next over, we also have hand and eye tracking. Now when you buy a headset like the Quest, you get these two controllers with it. You've probably noticed it on the boxes or the ads. However, when you buy the Vision Pro, you get no controllers. And this isn't because Apple's cheaping out and trying to maximize profits, but more so Apple doesn't even make any controllers for these. Instead, they want you to use your eyes and your hands to actually control the headset. And I think this is a pretty cool idea because using your hands and your eyes, which are actually your body parts, is actually a more natural and human experience compared to having a plastic remote in your hand and pressing buttons. But yeah, just like the Passthrough, even using the hands and eye tracking, I think that's definitely a more natural and human experience, which overall contributes to this narrative that I'm trying to make, which is, well, the Apple Vision Pro is Apple's push at making VR feel more human and making it easier to adapt for the masses. So next over, we have personas on the Vision Pro. Now this one, it's a bit interesting, and particularly because it's still in beta and it doesn't work exactly as great as advertised. So the personas feature comes in two parts. Number one is this EyeSight feature, and number two is FaceTime. Now for EyeSight, as I mentioned before, it's still in beta and it doesn't work perfect. And it's basically, if you haven't heard of it already, it's these eyes, it's actually your eyes that the Vision Pro displays on its outside screen, and it's supposed to seem like your eyes are actually like looking outside, and it'll track your eyes and it'll show you exactly how they look on the inside. But like, it's still early technology and it's definitely not working perfectly. However, it's definitely an attempt to make the Vision Pro seem more human and more natural, and it's retaining one of the main parts of your face where people are looking when they're talking to you, which is the eyes, and like your eye expressions and where you're looking. All of that contributes to your conversation. So having your EyeSight feature out there, like, it definitely does like keep you more connected to the outside world, and it'll still keep you engaged in an outside conversation without having to like log out of the headset and then unstrap it and put it on a box or something. Like, you get the idea. This does make it more human and it makes it seem more natural. And that's especially compared to something like the Quest or like even the HTC Vive, which just make you seem like a robot that's completely disconnected to the outside world. Now, the second part of personas is FaceTime. Now, FaceTime is also, well, it's still in beta and it's definitely gonna use some work. And it's basically this 3D scan it makes of you to make an avatar. Now, compared to Meta's 3D avatars, this is light years ahead. Like, it's not even anywhere close. But at the same time, it's still definitely plasticky. You could definitely tell it's fake, but it's also making progress towards the future. Like right now we have a decent scan of your face, but imagine in the future, like for example, I have a lot of relatives that live back in Punjab in India, which is halfway across the world. Like, I'm not about to regularly catch an 18-hour flight, or they're not about to catch an 18-hour flight to like meet me. And the solution will be, well, maybe in the next decade, just put on your glasses, hop onto a FaceTime call, and then you could see their whole body standing there like they're in the same room as you, and it'll actually look real. Like, I think that's definitely something that does have the potential for eventually happening. However, there's a high emphasis on eventually. Like for right now, we just have these small squares which are, I guess, human avatars that do look more human and natural than whatever Meta has, the like cartoon anime things. But that being said, still a high emphasis on eventually we'll get there. So all in all, I think you get the idea of where I'm coming from. I think Apple nailed the Vision Pro just because they made it more human and more natural feeling than the rest of the headsets, and that does pave the way for the future for where we have a seamless integration of like, I guess, mixed reality into our lives. Now, is it kind of dystopian? Yeah, kind of. I can see where you're coming from if you do believe that. But overall, I still think like a lot of these concepts, like once again, the F1 races or like the furniture in your room or learning your instrument, like a lot of that stuff is definitely really cool. And if we keep making it more human and more natural, it will be less and less dystopian. However, you may still be unconvinced. Like you may be thinking in today's day, like I'm not talking about 10 years in the future, but in today's day, people are wearing the Vision Pro in the public and they don't necessarily look anything human. Like they look more like robots and disconnected from reality. And my argument for that will be, well, whenever Apple does like this type of stuff, like when they came out with the Apple Watch or even the AirPods, especially the AirPods actually, we always get the same reaction. Like fine, the headset may be a bigger deal than the AirPods, but the reaction is basically the same. Like this looks stupid, I would never wear it and nobody else should be wearing it either. And to be honest, eventually this does start to get more normalized, especially when this cheaper model comes in a couple years, where it's like half the price and it still has a lot of good features and more refined software and hardware. Like this is gonna get more normalized, and that is Apple's specialty. But moreover, once again, the gist of what I'm getting to is we are eventually still gonna have this. It's not always gonna be this like huge ski goggles made out of metal and glass, but more so eventually we're just gonna have normal sunglasses or glasses. So that's been it for me today. I definitely once again do believe that this is the future, and Apple is definitely trying to pave the way to make the VR AR situation feel more human and more natural. But yeah, that's been about it. Once again, make sure to check my other video if you are more interested in this whole topic, and make sure to like and subscribe. And also, if you agree or disagree, let me know down in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.